Welcome to the Heavy Pages podcast, a space for women struggling with an unwanted separation or divorce. I'm Josie, your host, a separation survival coach, creator of the From Devastated to Divorce program, a mother of two, and a survivor of my own unwanted separation and divorce. My mission is to help you avoid some of the pitfalls that extended my journey of growth and healing, and to provide you with tips and tools that will help get you to a place of acceptance and empowerment. Because sometimes the pages of life can be heavy, but you don't have to turn them alone. All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Heavy Pages. I'm so excited today because I have a super duper special guest to introduce to you all and talk with. So it is Shirley Baldwin. How are you, Shirley?
I am good. How are you?
I'm great. And Shirley is not only a author, she is also a guru, coach. What do you call yourself? What's your title, Shirley?
I call myself the Get What You Want guru.
Excellent. I love it. But not only that, Shirley and I have known each other for so many years. I'm not even going to say the amount of time, but so many.
A lot. I was trying to figure it out this morning. I'm like, oh, shoot, I'm old.
A lot. And what's funny is it was in our other lives where both of us were wanting to, imagining that we were going to be like movie stars and supermodels. Exactly. So it was in an acting or modeling?
Modeling.
It was modeling.
I think it was like both.
I guess they did. They did both.
Modeling school, yeah. And then we both got jobs at Disney World, and we got to spend 12 hours in the middle of the night freezing and acting like we were having fun in the summer. And we just became friends. I just remember we would try to, because they would let us stay at Disney World, remember, for like the whole next day for free.
Right.
But then you're up all night sitting on concrete waiting for your time to go on.
Yeah.
But I always tell people, like, I was in the commercial for Beauty and the Beast, for Little Mermaid, and for Captain EO with Michael Jackson, remember?
Yes. And I really tried to pay attention to record it back in the day when you had to click the VCR to record it. So I would be able to, I remember where I was sitting and I'm like, am I going to see myself? But I never did. But I love Disney. So it was really cool. It was an experience. And now you know how they do their commercials in the middle of the night where everybody's pretending that it's daytime and all excited and happy.
Yeah. And the crazy thing is, it was their 15-year anniversary.
Well, that tells you something.
So I remember seeing that, and they've already I think they're at their 50th anniversary. So
that's what I'm saying. If you do the math, Jesus. Yeah. I also got called for Nickelodeon when they had Welcome Freshman. I did Welcome Freshman and she was now Sabrina the Teenage Witch, but that was more famous. She was doing another Clarissa Explains It All or something like that.
Yeah.
But I have tried to look for Welcome Freshman reruns to see if I could see myself. That show doesn't even exist. It must have been so bad that nobody even talks about it. And Nickelodeon didn't even try to put it anywhere.
No. And I remember that I used to wear this like big white bow on purpose. I don't know. I don't even know. But anyway, I remember that one of the videos from Beauty and the Beast, it was like, it started at my bow and zoomed backwards. And I never got that. And then I was shaking Cogsworth the Clock's hand like in a little teeny tiny spot. And I never got that either. So those were my big claim to fames back then, you know? And somehow we've managed to stay friends for all these years, which is
absolutely so. And our lives have taken 20 million different turns. So that is what we're here to talk about today, because how exciting. I have your book right here, which is called Get What You Want from Your Man, a guide to creating the relationship you deserve.
Yeah, that's me.
It's a small book with a lot of information and your story. So when I met you, you were married, your first marriage. We didn't really hang out too much with the men folk while I was single. So
yeah, I don't even think I was married, but I was like dating or something.
Oh, maybe you were with him.
But I feel like, I can't remember anyway, if we had started earlier when we were like 15 or if we if it was like a little bit later, but yeah,
Right.
I was definitely in that first
You
relationship.
were with him. And the next time that I met you, that we actually were able to see each other again, was when you came to SeaWorld and I saw you at SeaWorld and you had your daughter.
Yeah. Yes. Which is so crazy.
Yeah, tell me about your book. Tell me about your story. Obviously, my podcast is for women dealing with separation and divorce, which is, rough.
I'm a professional.
That's why I wanted to talk to you because, you can give women some serious hope to don't give up. So share with us, where would you like to start?
Okay, so well, I just kind of grew up in a crazy life, and I was in an abusive relationship when I was 15 with a 32-year-old. And it was kind of like I mean, all I have to say is that, right? Back then I thought it was cool, and I was just very controlled. And so I met my first husband out of that relationship, and
Okay.
I finally like escaped it, but it took me 3 years to get out of it. And it was just super hard on my soul. I met this person who was just so nice, so kind, and we were really good friends. I feel like there was never really any passion, but I was being treated nice. And he was also
Right.
older, but I was 19 at the time when I got married the first time.
Okay.
And I think I was 19, he was 31 when we got married.
Okay.
So another older guy, but really like kind and respectful of me. And I felt like that was it. I had just met the love of my life and was going to be in it forever. And it was kind of about me, like not being in an abusive relationship. I was really grateful to be in a relationship where someone was nice to me. And so we ended up being married for 12 years and had 3 kids
Wow.
together. And when my youngest was, I believe she was about 18 months, I realized like I was kind of going through this like wild stage because I was 30 and I was ready for life. And, we were from 2 different decades. So my husband at the time wanted to just play golf all the time and chill. And I wanted to like have fun travel. I've always loved traveling and
Right.
adventures. And anyway, I decided to become a martial artist. And
Wow.
I ended up doing that for 6 total years, but I started getting a bunch of confidence and learning more about myself and realizing that like we were just not a good fit. And honestly, if I was to know everything that I know now and go back, that relationship probably wouldn't have ended. There's a lot of things that we have control over, which I didn't realize at the time.
Sure.
But I'm really grateful for where I am today. So it's hard to say that, but
Of course.
without knowing anything in the future, if I knew what I knew now, I could have made that relationship work. Well, I went from that one into a completely different relationship, like with someone who's completely different, I thought, and kind of fell back into that, the negative, like abusive, lying, like a lot of things, like the very first relationship that I had. And I thought, wow, how did I pick someone that was seemingly so different, but ended up having the same kind of relationship?
Right.
So I was in my first one for 12 years, my second one for 6 years. And then when I divorced him, he moved out and was living with another woman. So I thought maybe we should get a divorce. And I had a child with him. So now I'm like a single mom of 4 kids. I was
Wow.
working in the MLB. I managed to, that's a whole story for a different day, but I was working as a mental skills coach in the MLB, like a scout, mentor, mental skills coach. And I just really had like a lot of things that I had worked through in my life. And so I just started kind of using the techniques that I had used to work through things to help other people.
Right.
So yeah. So second marriage ends. I am by myself with 4 kids. I have a good job that pays the bills, but I decide that I'm going to get into another relationship. So this one, I thought we had the same religious background. He was super kind. A friend of mine knew him, so we kind of like met through a mutual friend. So I figured like I knew this guy, and I was going to do everything the right way. And I ended up marrying him like 5 months after we met.
Wow.
Yeah. So that marriage was hell, to say the least. I took on 3 kids, or I'm sorry, I took on 2 kids, and the daughter just wanted to destroy me, and she was 13. My kids were very like loving, kind, obedient. I worked really hard to try to be the best mom.
Sure.
And these kids were just really hard on me, and he was hard. And it turned out that he was a porn addict. He was messaging and seeing people on the side.
Right.
I could go on like 15 different things that would just blow your mind about him, but I finally escaped that relationship, but it took 8 years for me to get out. And I was at like a suicidal lowest point of my life when I finally got out of that.
Wow.
So that brings me to discovering myself, learning a lot, and to being in like this like amazing relationship. I have an amazing marriage. I'm raising 3 more kids. So
Right.
I've had a lot of kids in my life, but this one is just so different. And so maybe that's like what we're here to talk about, is just like how I escaped that. My book is kind of about all the things that I learned.
I wanted to touch on a couple of those relationships, starting all the way back from the first one that was not a
Yeah.
marriage, but abusive relationship, and you were very young.
Yeah.
What do you feel for other young women that might feel like, hey, this older man is talking to me, and it gives you like a sense of worth, power?
Yeah.
What do you feel? What do you think that young women feel when an older man is interested in them, and what should they not be telling themselves?
Yeah. So I think now I'm like, I didn't see a red flag because I was 15. But
Of
now,
course.
if my 15-year-old was a 32-year-old, I'd probably shoot him, honestly.
Right,
And
right,
so I feel like just, I mean, maybe trying to take a step back. And I know like you're 15 or 16 or even 20 and a predator comes along, like it's exciting and you feel like he was my boss and I felt like I had more privileges than anyone, and I did have
right,
more privileges. But that was I mean, to be candid, I was raped in that relationship. I was also, he had a 7-year-old who was half my age, and I
Jesus,
had a lot of responsibilities with that.
right,
And he just put me through the ringer.
right,
I mean, I was locked in basements. There were some pretty horrific things. And I think that any man who is, 10 to 15 years older or more, 10 or more years older than someone who's just young, before you become of age, I think is just a predator, period.
right,
Like we could not have had a real relationship because I wasn't mature enough to have that.
right,
But at the time I felt like I was. Like we all
right,
think we know everything when we're 15, like I knew everything about relationships. I was also living on my own. My parents had kicked me out because I joined a religion they didn't like, and so this was also like for me it was maybe some safety.
right,
And something also that I've learned in life is we excrete like the same endorphins, whether it's good or bad, and we can become addicted to things that are bad as well as good. So
right,
for me, there was some excitement and something that just kept me in that. Like it served me, which I realized that, I could have gotten out of it at any time. I could have walked away, but I allowed him to control me. And because he was a predator and he knew what he was doing and I did not know what I was doing, that was something that served me in some sort of a weird safety way.
right.
But
And, probably the worry of where this is terrible, but the unknown could be even worse.
yeah,
Like, where am I going to go? He might do all these horrible things, but he
yeah,
also pays the bills, and I have a roof
yeah,
over my head, and all of these
yeah,
things. And you start, especially, probably, I don't know, but you can tell me that your self-worth and your value was not really there. You hadn't had the time to really do that, especially at 15,
no,
so you don't really think that you had the strength of will to do these things on your
right.
own. So,
Yeah, self-worth is definitely something. And I try to tell my new kids, like my littles. I've had them for 7 years, but so I have like my kids that I birthed and then my kids that are my blessings too,
Right.
my extra blessings. But I try to tell them a lot, like, self-worth is something we build over a lifetime, right? Like,
Right.
I mean, it's not something you just step into. And I think our world puts so much emphasis on it, but then everyone's like, okay, I need to have self-worth, but how? Why? How do you
Right.
do that? And
Right.
so, yeah, at the time, he had a cool car, he had a lot of money. I wasn't on the streets all the time. Like, I also kind of used it for my safety. But yeah, looking back, I didn't have self-worth, like, for sure. I didn't even know what that was.
Yeah, and then him being the adult,
Yeah,
they should know better, and he did know better, but he was counting on the fact that you didn't. That's people say they should know better. They do know better. Don't think they don't. Don't think that they
right.
don't know that being with the 15-year-old is not it, but they're like, she doesn't,
Yes.
and she's allowing it,
Yeah.
and as long as I can hold on to it, I'm gonna.
Yeah.
So,
And there's something with them. Anyone who, I mean, I've been on a lot of like TV shows now, news stations, radio shows, podcasts, like talking about narcissism. And
right,
we realize that like they don't actually know that they're being that. So he did know, he knew that it was wrong,
right,
but also it was more important for him to like feed his ego and to get what he wanted than it was to even go to that place
of
of
course,
knowingness.
right,
And I
subconsciously.
knew also in my gut, but I also wanted to be in it more than I wanted to listen to my gut. And so I think that's one thing, like, I would tell people starting from an early age, and especially women, we have an innate sense of like gut, of intuition that we don't recognize as like it's a gift given to us and we need to be able to use that. So I
Right,
always tell people, like, if there's anything in your gut that makes you question something, run. Like, your gut knows, our knowingness knows more than we
right,
know.
right. Exactly. That's very true. So, moving on to that first actual husband, who you
Yeah.
say wasn't really a bad guy, but you guys were
Right.
not in the same place in
No.
time in the world. And after you're
Right.
coming from all this other stuff, you didn't get to be a kid. At 15, you were taking care of a
No.
7-year-old. You were dealing with
Right.
the trauma, even it is trauma
A lot of trauma. Yeah.
of what you went through with that relationship, that you're like, I want to feel some freedom. I want to feel some agency.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it was the wrong time in your life, really.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like it was looking back, was more like a father-daughter kind of relationship. He took care of me.
Right.
He was very easygoing, but then later he realized that he didn't love me the way that I needed to be loved either.
Okay.
He was
Okay.
easygoing. His family talked him into marrying me because I was also easygoing. And yeah, we didn't have a lot of stress. We had by the time we had kids, we had some, like, a couple of my kids had some hereditary illnesses. And so we dealt with that kind of stuff, but we didn't really, like, we didn't fight in 12 years of marriage. We had one fight,
Wow.
and it was 7 years into the marriage that we ended up having that. And it was because he was putting my body down, which was, so I feel like when I look back to that relationship, it was more like a father-daughter relationship. And
Right.
also, I was still feeling like there wasn't worth in me. Like,
Right.
I was like, this was as good as it's going to get because I wasn't worthy of anything bigger or better.
It almost sounds like for some people that were like, wow, you hit the jackpot. He's calm. He's not causing any
Yeah.
trouble. But you don't want to just exist. You want to
Right.
actually live. And it's good that he also recognized that, right? Because then it's not like it's
Yeah.
anybody's really fault. You guys recognize he
Yeah.
was there for a period of time that you needed that boost, and then maybe
Yeah.
overstayed that a little bit, but you both
Yeah.
were able to recognize that nobody's heartbroken or
Yeah, well, and I did break his heart. Like, I think in the end, it was me who exited that relationship again.
right.
And it was a really hard thing on him. But I mean, to this day, we're still friends. He was just at my house the other day, and that
Oh,
was 23 years ago that we got our divorce. So we share kids, we share grandbabies,
right.
we have a friendship.
Good.
we consult each other on the kids, whatever. But that
That's important.
relationship's always been there, but it just was not a marriage relationship for me, for
Right.
sure.
Right.
But I didn't know that. Again, I didn't know.
Of course, you didn't. So
You
that
just
makes
don't know what
sense.
you don't know. Yeah.
No, you don't. That is true. So when you moved into the third relationship, do you
Yeah.
feel at this point that because of course we're still talking about self-esteem, that you felt like you couldn't be alone, you didn't want to be alone? Did you feel that you needed a partner for your worth? How do you feel that played in it, or were you just
So
lonely, or was it
yeah,
really simple?
the third relationship was uh one of my kung fu teachers, like in martial arts. So we had a friendship and he accepted me for who I was. I've always been a little bit weird, a little bit different, and I think my first husband wanted me to like fall into this box that, and people say about me like, yeah, you have a box, it's just way bigger than everyone else's. Like it's hard for me to be like stuffed into some perfect
Sure.
woman or like living this certain space. And
Right.
this other person allowed me to just be whatever I wanted to be. And that relationship kind of just happened. And we were two completely different people, like
Right.
so opposites. And I think that was kind of exciting for me,
Right.
to have. And I feel like, yeah, I got way in over my head with that one.
Right. Was there some gut stuff? Was there some gut feelings? Do you feel like this was the one with the daughters that, or the kids that were,
No, this
no,
isn't
this
even
wasn't
that
the
one
one.
yet.
Okay,
This
okay.
is
So,
this was a guy who was 4 years younger than me. So
okay.
so I'm breaking patterns, right?
Right.
And what I realized, like, he was 4 years younger than me. He had a lot of issues, and I could come save him. That was
Ah,
something that I could do, or I thought
right.
I could do. And then I felt like I had the upper hand of that relationship. So I feel like I was like trying to switch a pattern,
Right.
and well, this person can't leave me because they need me too much. Well, then I got in over my head, had a baby with him who I love so much. He's 20
Of
now.
course. Wow.
We were married for 6 years, but 5 years and 360 of the days were hard. Like, I
Right.
mean, we didn't have good days. We
Right.
we rarely had good days. There was a lot going on in the background. He was a bartender. He was an alcoholic. But he didn't admit that until later. And actually, we're still friends today too. So,
Wow. And whose
um,
decision was to end that relationship?
me again.
Also. Okay.
Yeah. And so I do these like dramatic exits. And to tell you the honest truth, like there was always a little bit of the next relationship was kind of starting when I was when I was getting out of each relationship, which also was a pattern, right?
Right.
So I kind of needed that like encouragement to
Right.
get, and that is very common with people, but they feel like guilty for it or whatever. But I could see how that in some cases it can be good to, maybe start to feel like you're worth something to someone else, but like maybe not a full relationship, but just kind of the beginnings of, wow, I could have something different than this. And
Right.
so when things got really hard, I ran again for the third time,
Gotcha. So it kind of
or the second time. I'm sorry, second
right.
time.
It kind of seems like, yes, it was more about knowing someone else was waiting kind of in the wings. So you're not going to have to be by yourself, but you can get out
Yes.
of this that you don't like.
Yes.
Right.
And
Which is
so, yeah.
where the work was still waiting for you to be like, I am enough to
Yes.
leave this relationship. It's not
Yes.
because of somebody else. It's because I deserve it.
Right. So after that relationship, I was very much like, never going to marry again, never going to have a relationship with a man again. I'm going to be with my kids and be a good
Right.
mom. I had gotten my good MLB job. I pretty much had a man to fill most of my spaces. Like if I needed someone to come hang a picture, I had that. If I needed someone to talk to all night, I had that.
Right.
If I needed compliments, I just go to the baseball field. Like I had a lot of my needs were being filled like outside
Right.
of a relationship. And so I thought that I didn't need one and that I could just live forever without a relationship. And I was 36 years old. So that was, just a crazy time in life. I thought, I don't need this. And my oldest daughter one day was like, Mom, you need to stop being the man of the house and find a man of the house kind of thing. And she was 13, I'm like,
Wow.
what, who are you? Like, how do you know this? But so then I met this other guy, and he just like aligned. He checked all my boxes. I wrote all my boxes down, and a few months into that marriage, I was like, here we go again. I'm
Right.
feeling the same thing. I'm finding out all this bad stuff about him. Like I'm being like mentally abused and neglected. And there was a lot of stuff going on, and my kids were involved, and I had his kids, and we
Right.
had to move the state. And so there was like an upheaval with my other exes. And I was just like, I can't do this, but I also can't have 3 divorces. Like, who am I to be I mean, I was like a relationship guru at that point. I was helping everyone else with their relationships.
Right.
And I was messed up, which is kind of what we all do to begin with. So we always pick what we are struggling at to help other people with,
Well,
right?
because we know what to do and we can tell people what to do it, but sometimes
Yes.
for ourselves, it's so much harder.
Yeah, I was really good at other people's lives for a
Right.
really long time. I was really good at it. And so I mean, I had over 400 clients at that time,
Wow.
And I just was like, I can't get a divorce. And so I just we got in like a deeper, darker place. And this was like I mean, it was crazy what I would just find out about him,
Right.
like hiring people on the side, and that he had been fired from some jobs, and that he owed a bunch of money, and like he had portrayed himself to be the exact opposite. At church, he was just like everything. And he always made me feel like I was below him. And I thought, like, this is not, my friends would be like, you are not this person. How are you allowing it? And again, I was allowing someone to just strip the power from me. And I mean, in the end, I had pneumonia. I was in the hospital, and I wanted to die. Like, literally, I got to that place. And I feel like,
So it manifested physically, all of
oh,
this.
100%. Yeah.
Wow.
That happens a lot.
Right.
You know? So yeah, I finally got the courage to get out of that. And my kids were so happy and so grateful. But again, it was just like 3 divorces. Who
Right.
am I?
Right.
And I met my husband that I have now, and we were just like best friends. And I was really wanting to be careful with him. He was definitely different. He was a
Right.
doctor, and I thought, like, I don't want to be with a doctor. And I was older than him, and he's just like, I don't want to be with someone older than me. So we were just like really good friends.
Right.
And I, up to this point, people kept saying, you need to write a book. You need to write a book. Like, you need to write your life story. This is a crazy life story. So I just kept thinking, I have to become someone special in order for someone to read my story. Why would anyone
Right.
read that? And then I saw that, I really liked this guy, and I really wanted to be something different. And so I decided to take all of everything that I've learned in my life and all the advice I'd given these 400 clients and put it
Right.
all on myself.
Okay.
And I learned that who I was being was creating my relationships. And I
Wow.
think that's a hard thing for me to learn, and also for me to teach women, because everyone's like, wait, no, like you didn't rape yourself, like you didn't abuse yourself. No, but who I was being
Right.
allowed that person to treat me how they treated. Does that make sense?
I mean, you have to take a little be introspective and take a little responsibility about certain things, right? It's not,
Yes. Yeah.
you can't victim blame and stuff like that, but
Right.
that's not the same as taking some
No.
ownership. Take some ownership
Yeah.
of the choices and the things that you date, the things you ignored, the things you kind of knew better on, and just
Yeah.
being as honest with yourself as you can.
Not getting out when I knew I should get out,
Right.
allowing someone to treat me the way they treated me. Like,
Right.
we do have part in creating the relationships that we have.
Right.
And even in, so I decided one day that I would use everything that I learned, and I started using all of my techniques and my, like, who I was on my husband. And he was like, I feel like I'm part of your playbook. Cause we were very honest. I'm like, we're going to communicate, and this is how we're going to communicate, because I taught this, I'm going to practice on you. We're going to play some, communication games, whatever.
Right.
So one morning I woke up and I thought, I'm just going to write my book. I'm going to write a book. And that is not the book that I was going to write, but that's what came out.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And it sounds bad because it's get what you want from your man. But what I learned is that I needed to meet women where they were at. And we all want more, right? We all want more of something. And so my book is really about like meeting someone where they're at on their journey in life and helping them to, one, learn what it is that they truly want, and then two, learn how they can get that.
I love it. And how long have you been with your husband?
It's been 7 years and we've been married for 5.
I think that I understand your fear of being, a third time divorced.
Yeah.
I mean, after every one of them, it's a stigma, right? Maybe not so much anymore, but it still kind of is. And then, you add the numbers and then you're like, it's almost better, not for you, but for the world's perception of you to be in this miserable marriage than be third time divorced.
For sure.
And that's what, holds people back. And I'm sure that there are women right now that may have been divorced 1 or 2 times that are scared to even attempt a third marriage because they don't want to be a third time divorce, or be like, if I try the next one, I got to be stuck in it because I can't be divorced 3 times. And
exactly,
there's no rules. Don't do this to yourself, right? It's like,
right. And also like, know that you have the power to get out. Like you're the boss of you. And I think that's a big thing that we don't realize as women because of what's been handed down for centuries. Like we don't realize that we actually are so powerful as women.
Right.
We have so much of the power, and that's why it was taken from us. And so to have that realization that like you have every ability to get out of something and to get into something better, or to be alone, or whatever your heart desires, but like you actually really have that capability and power.
That's one of the main things that I also talk about in other parts of my podcast is it all really comes down to knowing your value and knowing your worth, because a lot of these situations can't happen if you do that work, and it's really the core. So it's figuring out, like you said earlier, how do I do it? It sounds like a buzzword, but how do we make it actually happen in life?
Yeah. And I feel like you have to, we hear this all the time. Insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result, right?
Right.
So I feel like whether you're in a relationship or you're not yet in one, or you've been in one that's forever, why not try something different? Why not learn more about you, about your relationship, about men, about the world we live in? The more you understand, the more you have the power to steer it in a different direction.
I kind of think it goes in the same way of you were saying that you yourself can't be put in a box. Don't put a relationship and a marriage into a box. Everybody is so different that what you do, the way you choose to communicate, the way you choose to deal with your relationship and handle problems and allow him boys' weekends and whatever it is that you do to help keep your relationship. There's no rules. If it works for you guys, it works for you guys.
Right.
That's important to remember.
And I think one of the things in order to do that is to learn how to have those conversations in a relationship, and make agreements instead of having all these expectations,
Right. And that's one of the things that you do. You help people figure out how to have those conversations, the right way to have those conversations.
Yeah.
Right. Because communication is a very big issue. And if you trying to not be adversarial.
Yeah.
But it's hard. And sometimes people don't know. And sometimes people do what they saw their parents do.
Yeah.
So this is things that now in this generation, us and moving forward, I hope our kids, we're able to learn we do as women have a right to speak up and to be heard. And we don't have to be terrible to do it. We can do it in a calm but firm fashion and deserve to be heard.
Yes, 100%.
Well, Shirley, I am so excited that we got to do this. I've been wanting to talk to you about this forever, and I've really enjoyed your book. And I remember, I think I remember when I first read your book. My daughter is 12 now, but I think when I first had it, she was probably like 8 or 9, and she saw it, and she's like, "Get what you want from your man." "Well, all you have to do is take his wallet," or she made some silly little comment like that, and I'm
I
like, "Oh
remember
my."
you telling me that.
Right?
Yeah,
I
that's
was
so
just like, "Oh
funny.
my gosh." But it is really a great book, so I definitely recommend that. Where do you find this book?
You can find it anywhere, Amazon, Barnes& and
Amazon?
Noble, Target, Walmart, whatever. It's out there.
Out there?
Just look it
Okay.
up. Amazon's probably the best.
Yeah, everybody goes to Amazon, so definitely.
And I also, if your listeners would, I'll send you a link to give to
Okay.
them. I
Okay.
have 10 rules to fighting fear, which is a really good way to start navigating a different relationship. So I'll give that for free to your listeners if
Excellent.
anyone wants that. They can
Perfect.
reach out.
You'll send it to me. I'll put it on the show
Yeah,
notes or however. So great. Well, thank you so much for taking the time. It's always great to catch up with you. So
yeah,
I look
of
forward to
course.
hearing all the other things that you're doing because we still have so much more to do.
I know we are going to have like 10 more podcasts to cover everything. So
Exactly. Exactly. All right. Well, thank you so much again.
thanks for having me.
Well, and there you have it. And a real special thanks to Shirley for taking the time to share with all of us her story. I did forget to ask her about where on social media she can be found because we were so engrossed in our conversation. But don't worry, I am going to put all of that information in the show notes for you. I will mention, just as a side note, that she does have an Instagram, and she had an Instagram that had over 17,000 followers, but it got hacked by one of those crypto bros people, and she was unfortunately unable to get it back. So she has to start from scratch, which for me sounds really painful because I'm struggling hard to get those numbers up there. So to lose that many followers is a bit of an ouch. So I just wanted to say that since I will be sharing her Instagram below, and you will see that it's got some pretty low numbers because she's starting again. But I have no doubt that she is going to be bouncing back. Anyway, thanks again for listening, and I will catch you on the next one. Bye for now. That's going to be it for this episode. If you'd like to reach out to me, you can always find me on Instagram at heavy_pages_podcast. And if you found this episode interesting, please consider clicking on that 5-star rating and following so you are notified when the next episode drops. As always, thank you for listening, and remember, sometimes the pages of life can be heavy, but you don't have to turn them alone.